Am I saying that correctly?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
go ahead.
Okay. That was a tough act to follow. Thank you. I'm Liz Marsis from the Audubon Society, and we are fully in support of the Transportation Trust Fund creation and the taxes that will be generated by it. The benefits to the state are obvious. Avoiding debt service and paying for transportation products needs to be distributed in a financially fair and responsible way across all of the residents of the state. The transportation infrastructure has critical impact not only on the future economic development of the state and generation of new business and support of existing business, but also on public health. And therefore, the transportation infrastructure as it exists, as we know, is in critical state of a need of repair, critical repairs. It needs long-term funding to avoid this debt obligation, but it also needs upgrades in modernization with regard to environmentally friendly features so that all users can have safe access to our roads, and we can begin to transition to a more modern economy that allows for a healthy transportation system where people are walking and biking and doing those kinds of things. Now, that is small in a way when you think about the need of the Conan Street Bridge and a whole section of Pawtucket being developed and the bridges collapsing. But they actually work in sync because we need to move towards more systematic, holistic approaches to solving the problems of the state. The Transportation Trust Fund bill is a strategic allocation. Not only, as Jerry mentioned, do the projects that are funded have to be approved in the TIP plan so that they're very specific projects with known costs. This money will be managed responsibly to invest in those. But it also goes to the towns and municipalities for local road maintenance. And as we know, our cities and towns are very, very hard hit with all kinds of cutbacks in the state budgets. And so that local level of transportation spending is also protected the way the mechanism of this trust bill is set up. And I wanted to take a minute to talk about the petroleum gross products receipt tax because that's kind of a new item. We're all pretty much aware of the fact that it is petroleum that has fueled our economy for a long time, and even petroleum-based products. Couldn't even go to a luncheon today without having it wrapped in plastic, right? So, I mean, we've got suburban sprawl, we've got car culture, we've got plastic all over the place. And when the price of oil soars, as it has been doing in spikes periodically since the early 1970s, the value of the state revenues from the gasoline tax is flat because it is a per penny tax on the gasoline. Okay, so when the price goes up and down, if you're getting a fixed amount per gallon, the state is not taking advantage of that variation in the price. So one of the things that the petroleum gross products receipt tax as a 3% tax will fix this imbalance in not being able to capture those windfall revenues. And that is exactly the reason why the state of Connecticut introduced the tax, to capture some of that windfall money that was going to the oil-based industries and bring it into the state revenue and have it fund transportation. The other problem with the revenue funding is that as the state revenues decline, as people conserve on gas and ride bus, which is also healthy for the economy, good for the environment, and part of a vital structure of the infrastructure, as well as serving the needs of our lowest income folks, a flat tax is counter-cyclical. It doesn't inspire people to make good consumer choices because, you know, you want to be able to have a revenue that functions when people are doing the right things in response to the market. Okay, so basically, those are kind of the major points on that tax, and I just wanted to reiterate that petroleum in all its forms is a major source of air pollution, and it affects human health, environmental health, as well as our economic health. And therefore, it only makes sense that the petroleum industry and vehicle owners pay a little bit extra to make sure that our roads and bridges are maintained and that we have a viable source for funding public transportation for business and public and health use. So those are my comments from the Audubon Society. I'm going to switch hats and speak for the George Wiley Center. It is a really tough year to be making decisions. I've heard it said over and over again that there's no stomach for raising taxes, any kind of taxes. Well, I just want to ask you, how are you going to invest in improving the economy of this state without taxing the people who have the money to be taxed in order to pay for restructuring this economy? In looking at reports from the World Bank as well as the U.S. Highway Administration, investments in local transportation have consistently higher returns on investment than other public investment, new highway investment, and even higher than private capital investment. So when you're talking about the engines of the economy, roads have an incredible network effect in stimulating all kinds of growth. So in that sense, it is vital. And when you talk about people not being able to afford the tax, the people who really can't afford the tax don't own cars and aren't putting any money in their gasoline tank. So you are really helping the bottom. And not only that, somebody has to pay. And it only makes sense that we pay for something that benefits everyone when those who can afford just a few cents do that. So I ask you to make some hard decisions and step up to the plate and get the funding where it has to come from those who have the money to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marsis. I have a question